Well, hello again, everybody, and we welcome you to our final Coffee with the Community of this 2019-2020 school year. I'm Dallas Ackerman, the Director of Communications in Liberty Public Schools, and joined by Dr. Jeremy Tucker, the Superintendent here in LPS. Dr. Tucker have not had an opportunity to visit with you in a format such as this in a few weeks. How are you and your crew doing?
We're doing well. Thanks, Dallas, for asking, and appreciate everybody for joining us for this virtual coffee with the community. My daughter told me that it would not be complete without making a little bit of coffee, so I got my coffee cup here, and so we're ready to go with this experiment as far as facilitating our first virtual engagement with coffee with the community. So.
I guess I was thinking earlier, Dr. Tucker, when we were making the schedule out last July, who would have ever guessed that our April State of the District address from the superintendent would be 5 weeks plus moving into our extended learning from home after this just unprecedented time.
Yeah, I don't know that anyone could have predicted what the fourth quarter would look like here in Liberty Public Schools earlier this school year. We did a series of face-to-face state of the district meetings with every one of our schools and every single one of our departments, wrapped that up in March. And I use that as an example in that face-to-face piece and ability to interact and ask questions and engage and share information, to where all of a sudden the world's been kind of flipped upside down and we're doing more engagements like this. As far as Zoom meetings and social media responses and emails. So things really have kind of switched over. But I think overall, as a community, we've made the best of it, whether it's looking out for neighbors or ensuring that students continue their learning as it relates to learning from home in virtual environments. So I think our entire community is to be commended for everything that they've done in navigating this difficult period. And as you mentioned, we're kind of at that halfway mark. We've got about 5 weeks left into school. But then, of course, there's a lot more planning that goes into wrapping up the school year, and then also that look ahead into the months of June and July and what that could look like for us.
Absolutely. Again, Dr. Tucker joining us here today as part of our Coffee with the Community. And if you're at home, which I'm sure most are right now with the stay-at-home order, if you're at home watching this either on Facebook or YouTube, we would encourage those on Facebook, if you have any questions, just leave them in written form in the comment section below, and we will get an answer to you. And really, Dr. Tucker, speaking to that, before I turn it over to you, we have received many questions, and we're going to address a few of those frequently asked questions at the end of our coffee here today. But we just, about a month ago, rolled out our Let's Talk community engagement portal, and that has been a huge help for us, as I think we've answered. Our leadership team has been dialoguing with, I think, close to 200 stakeholders with many questions about this extended school closure and everything around COVID-19. Just very, very an important piece to all this, I think.
That communication piece is incredibly important. We know that students are probably most connected with their teacher at the classroom level, and then beyond that with their building administrators, and then certainly central office and our Board of Education. But that portal has been something useful for us as far as soliciting feedback, and then as well a number of our media outlets that we leverage or utilize across our district to be able to push information as well. So Dallas, thank you for your help and our entire team at the central office, but then really to every person that has pushed an email out or a school newsletter or anything to that sort, just to try to keep students and parents and staff engaged along the way. In a time of fear and uncertainty, we can't communicate enough and get the word out about the great things going on in our system, but then also some of those challenges that we're facing, as well as expectations and shifting to staff working remotely or teachers facilitating learning from home for our students. So thanks to everyone for that help in communicating out.
So as I mentioned earlier, April 23rd of 2020 was scheduled as the Dr. Jeremy Tucker State of the District address as we kind of wind down the school year. I know the presentation and the slides you're going to run through with us today mainly going to be around this COVID-19 situation as we maybe look back a little bit into the current situation, and then even looking forward. I know there's been a lot of talk on the reentry of things as we look probably a few months down the road. But what I'm going to go ahead and do then, if it's okay with you, is I'll let you take the meeting over, and then I'll rejoin you at the end, and we'll talk about a few of those frequently asked questions, if that works.
Yeah, thanks, Dallas. And again, thanks to everybody for joining us this morning for this time to be able to kind of comb through a few slides. We'll try to keep it brief. But I really want to start off with where we left off in our previous Coffee with the Community presentations and conversations. Each year, Dallas and I work to try to formulate the topics that we want to present over the course of each month or each quarter with our Coffee with the Community events, and really try to move those topics around a little bit to provide some variety. Throughout the course of last year, at the end of the semester and the spring semester on into the fall semester this year, we were really focusing on our strategic plan efforts. And so coming up with ideas, soliciting your feedback from our community as far as what you want to see for the future of Liberty Public Schools. And within those conversations, we really landed on this idea or this question of what does it mean to thrive? Wanting to create a strategic plan that was centered in equity, that allowed for us to be a little bit more flexible than we were used to being, but then also focusing on every single one of our learners, and that we felt that that question, what does it mean to thrive, really resonates with every single person in our community. Little did we know that the plans that were being put in place, the mindset that was being put in place as it relates to being agile, being more flexible, and not maybe being as rigid to what we had been in prior years as far as our strategic plan efforts, that would pay off as we look to what's been going on this spring semester in our fourth quarter. So some of the strategic planning pieces that we put in place related to personalization. It related to a flexible learning model where we could leverage flex learning days in the event that we realized inclement weather days and continue that learning from home, albeit it was a snow day or a reason to close school due to ice or some other purpose. We utilized that once this year, but that really set the foundation for everything that we've been working through over the course of the last several weeks. So whether it's that question thrive or developing our vision in terms of a message that we want to communicate to our community, to our students, to our staff, or that graduate profile. So much work has gone into really kind of setting the stage for what the future of Liberty Public Schools looks like. The reason I start with that is that ability to reassess, rethink, or be flexible is probably invaluable today more than ever. So whether it's those skills and dispositions that are trapped on our graduate profile, from those academic pieces to cultural to personal, professional, or entrepreneurial skills, what we've seen is that during this period of school closure, our students and our teachers and our parents, our entire community is accessing those skills really in real time as they become creative, whether it's at home or in the ways that they work or the way that they learn. Collaborating in virtual environments and settings like video conferencing, other examples like problem solving or critical thinking or communication skills. All of those skills and dispositions that our community really elevated as invaluable or important are playing out, I would say, probably every single day during this period of closure. So I think we've landed on the right work, but as we come out of this pandemic, hopefully sooner than later, it's really our ability to look back on the experiences that we have and that we're walking through today to be able to inform our next steps as a school district, whether it's planning around the summer or reentry, or how to ensure that students are being equipped with those skills and dispositions toward graduation. One of the things that we've seen is a sudden switch from that face-to-face environment, as we talked about earlier, Dallas, to learning from home. And so you see a lot of experiences like the one shown in terms of Zoom meetings where you've got a classroom now meeting virtually. And some of our slogans or hashtags that we've incorporated in and around end this together or share the good. And we've seen a lot of successes. But at the same time that we have seen a lot of successes, we've certainly walked through a lot of challenges, be it on how to put systems and structures in place, or working with students who now are used to having support at home or at school, but then some of their experiences, be it mental health or traumatic experiences, are really compounded by the fear and anxiety that has set in and around this pandemic. One of the things that we've noticed too is in partnering with a lot of districts around our region, across our state, or across the nation, is that we've seen a lot of different responses to how districts are navigating COVID-19. And so one of the resources we came across was from a partner of ours, a gentleman by the name of Dr. Scott McLeod. He's a professor in Colorado, as well as a consultant. And as he's worked with districts across the nation, there are really 4 phases that he identified. The first phase in responding to this pandemic has been to really provide for kind of that initial or basic access that students might need in transitioning from learning in a traditional setting to learning online or in a virtual environment. So some of those initial pieces that districts have been working on included pieces like ensuring that equipment or materials are provided to students, delivering food to students, attending to some of those basic family, social, emotional, and health needs. And we've certainly seen work in our district in and around these areas as well. I would say that as that is related to phase 1, we were pretty well positioned, having put that flex learning day model in place earlier this fall, albeit we only utilized it once. That provided some exposure to our students, our parents, and our teachers as to what that might look like, albeit we quickly realized that we would need to lean back on that model for a period of weeks. And so here we are kind of at that midway point, working toward the end of the year. The second phase is really that phase of subsistence learning, and that relates to equipping teachers with the appropriate training that they might need in and around technology or facilitating instruction from home, moving away from kind of that lower level knowledge work to moving, toward deeper learning, as well as that's seen in phase 3. Some districts aren't one-to-one, and they aren't blessed to have the technology like we have in our district. And so they're pushing out paper packets, but yet they're continuing learning as the school year progresses. That phase 3 is really that period of deeper learning, which is where we find ourselves now in working to hit that sweet spot in terms of designing instruction for higher level learning, not just kind of some of those rote memory pieces, and then ensuring that student agency or ownership in learning exists within every single one of our classrooms, even in a virtual environment, be it elementary, middle, or high school level. That last phase is really where we're beginning to transition to now in thinking about what reentry might look like, or ensuring, what if we have to, revert back to, once the all clear is given, revert back to some restrictions or another shelter in place? What might that look like as we design structures for the future in the fall, but also in the year to come, and not knowing exactly what this might look like? I think all of those pieces inform our new normal. And I can say this for certain, that each week things evolve. Things continue to be designed and structured, and we identify those things that have worked well and perhaps those things that have not worked so well. To speak a little bit more specifically to some of these areas in relation to district responses, particularly with Liberty Public Schools, greatly appreciate the work of our academic services team in taking that flex model, but then also thinking beyond that. Working closely with our elementary and secondary principals, as well as leadership teams at the school level, teachers and support staff. A couple of pieces that we did early on included identifying some best practices for virtual learning, as well as some virtual learning guidelines and what those expectations needed to look like for our students, teachers, as well as parents. And then lastly, as we kind of think through the remaining part of the school year, being able to focus on some key elements of online learning that we feel are important. whether it's focusing on clear learning outcomes, ensuring that the appropriate instruction is taking place. We talked a little bit about agency a while ago and how students can set their learning paths and their goals around things they want to accomplish, be it somewhat traditional, tied to standards or coursework, or perhaps pivot to areas that they're interested and passionate about. There are a lot of things that our students are interested and passionate about today that they're not able to do, unfortunately, because of these closures. And then that last category, as far as designing online instruction, would be able to ensure that we provide the appropriate resources for students to be successful. So we appreciate our teachers, pre-K through grades 12, for everything that they have done to stay connected and designing learning experiences that can continue over the course of the remainder of this year. And from our level, from the academic services team, the central office, and our Board of Education level, it's always been about how can we continue to support the work of those classroom teachers. We're excited here in the next couple of days to push out information regarding a choice board. Our choice boards were used the first couple of weeks of our school closure, and we had a lot of success with that. And we've designed a series of choice boards that we're calling Thrive on 5, in wanting to ensure that students are aware of those skills and dispositions tied to our graduate profile and are able to select and choose from a variety of activities, whether you're an elementary student, a middle school student, or a high school student. We look forward to pushing that out with the help of our teachers over the course of the coming weeks as we look to the month of May. I also want to highlight an area of focus that was very quickly a priority for us, and that was to be able to provide ongoing support for students and families for which meal services are an issue or food insecurity is an issue. Early on, as districts were thinking about the school closure, there were really 3 areas that bubbled up fast. That was, how can we continue to support students in their academic progress or learning over the course of the semester? Secondly, how can we continue to provide meal services to families? And then thirdly, really focusing on nearly 2,000 employees that we have within our school system. And ensuring job protection, income protection, but then also that transition in roles and responsibility to so many of our folks working remotely. Within that area of meal services, we pretty quickly put in place a couple of pickup locations, the first of which were at Liberty Oaks and Ridgeview. And to share a little bit of information, as of the end of last week, be it breakfast or lunch, on a weekly basis, we are averaging around 11,500 or so meals served each week. Couple that with a series of food kits that are delivered to families to assist them with their needs, be it for dinner or also over the course of a weekend. We've brought in a couple of community partners, including Pleasant Valley Baptist Church, Harvesters, and Feed Northland Kids, to be able to provide those food kits. The last figure that I saw as of earlier this week, as through our breakfast and lunch services, be it pickup or delivery, we've provided over 35,000 meals to support students and families within our school district. So we could not do this without the support of our nutrition services team, as well as our transportation team, in ensuring that our students' needs are being met. We're looking forward to next week actually opening up a couple of additional locations. So be on the lookout for that communication, as well as continuing that food service distribution into the month of June. And that we've been given some guidance from our State Department in that we have the ability to do that through at least the end of June. So we'll be communicating that information out as well. Even during a time of pandemic and school closures and shelter-in-place orders, we strive to improve. And so a couple of weeks ago, we pushed out an academic services survey that solicited information from students, from parents, as well as staff, around a couple of key questions as it relates to technology use, for example, how things are going on at home, that social emotional component. Are you fearful about what's taking place? How comfortable are you? And so forth. But then also an opportunity for staff, students, parents just to provide their thoughts. What are we doing well? What could we improve upon? And so as you see reflected in these couple of slides, we have a couple of graphics that gave an outlook as to what each of those categories of student, parent, and staff responded. And we've taken that feedback. We received over 150 pages of comments. And from that, there were some very significant themes that bubbled up. For example, clarity around expectations at all three of those levels in terms of how much work should my child be getting, or how much time as a teacher should I be investing, all the way to what are those guiding principles around instruction, or what are the grade expectations as far as how things will be graded during this fourth quarter period. All of that feedback has assisted us in putting out information and communicating to both students and staff, as well as parents, guidelines or clarity around each of those areas. In addition, that helped inform our Thrive on 5 model that we're looking at pushing out here beginning May 1st. With that said, we will continue to solicit feedback along the way over the course of the next several weeks, as well as identify areas upon which we can communicate further with our students, our employees, but then certainly all of our constituents within Liberty Public Schools. In looking ahead, just to end with a couple of key items, questions that we're hearing or problems that we're kind of working through are, what does the end of year look like? So whether it's end of year events, activities, celebration for our class of 2020, really thinking about things like baccalaureate and prom and graduation, and putting some plans in place, albeit I have to admit that those plans are always temporary given the current climate that we're working through, and that we can set our sights on some of those dates as far as graduation dates, knowing full well that the all clear might be given by then, or we may have to regroup and rethink what those events and ceremonies and celebrations look like. Another question that has been posed over the course of the last several weeks, as we were identified that we would be sheltered in place for the remainder of this year, would be how to access my students' items in their classroom, in their desk, or in their locker. And so we're working with our principals on how best to plan for that, again, with guidance from Clay County Health Department. As we kind of push into the months of June and July, people have asked questions around summer school. And so we're working on several scenarios to be able to facilitate both a virtual summer school for portions of our population, but then also what would it look like when that all clear is given to be able to facilitate a face-to-face summer school. We know for our special ed students, many of them continue their learning through extended school year that bleeds over into summer. And so we'll be walking through those plans as well in terms of developing a plan, but at the same time ensuring that we are messaging out and communicating to our students and families. We're already planning for the start of the 2020-21 school year in hopes that that happens in a traditional face-to-face environment, albeit we will likely still have some restrictions in place. What does reentry look like? What provisions do we ensure are in place to make certain that we have health and safety top of mind? So those are the discussions that are taking place within our administration, at our school level, but then certainly with our Board of Education. As was communicated out earlier last week, the Missouri State High School Activities Association canceled spring seasons. So whether they were performing arts categories, activities, athletics, that was put on pause for the time being. There was a communication that was put out by the Missouri State High School Activities Association that also indicated that as restrictions ease up and as we get into the summer, again, if those all clear indications exist, there might be some opportunity for students to engage in a variety of activities during the course of the summer months, be it specific sport-related events, or be it performing arts events, be it practices. We'll keep you informed along the way. Another factor that we're keeping a close eye on is really what is the eventual economic impact of everything that we're experiencing today. It certainly has taken a toll on our education system, but we know that beyond that, whether it's regionally, at the state level, or at the national level, closing businesses and the impact on the economy, really, we don't know quite yet what the overall picture of that is, but we know that that's coming. as we hopefully get back to the all clear, get back to some semblance of normal, and then are able to assess the impact on funding streams, the impact on our economy, on local businesses. And so we're having those conversations as a Board of Education, but then also as we budget for next year, as well as how we look to end this fiscal year. So we're very aware that there could be some similarities to the economic downturn that we experienced in Missouri back in 2001, 2002, or even 2008, 2009. And if you recall those periods, those were not great eras in recent times because we had to make some difficult decisions across school districts in Missouri. We had to tighten the purse strings a little bit, even look at some budget reductions. So we're looking at trying to make decisions today that set us up for success in the next couple of fiscal years as we navigate the economic toll that this closure and pandemic has put upon communities and school districts and businesses. We know many families have been impacted by this. How can we continue to meet the expectations as it relates to providing a high quality education? We certainly remain committed to that, and we'll keep you informed along the way as to the economic impact that this is having on our school district. The last two things I wanted to share before we wrap this virtual coffee with the community up would be really asking another question, and that is, what is our new normal? Oftentimes when you go through something, be it a celebration or a trial or a challenge, you come out on the other end with a new perspective. And there's no doubt that we will all come out of this with a different perspective. What worked well, what did not work well, what do we want to continue to do, but what do we want to perhaps rethink? So there's a new normal out of all of this as we think about the rest of this year, as we think about the summer, as we look ahead to the 2020-2021 school year, and what that has in store. Last thing that I would say is, as we navigate decisions that have yet to be made, health and safety is always at top of mind. And so I appreciate the grace that has been extended to teachers, from parents and students, to one another, to administration, to our Board of Education, for our entire community, your neighbors, whomever that might be. And knowing that some of the decisions that are being made you may not agree with, but please know that we're always looking to make decisions that are in the best interest of our learners, and particularly right now with health and safety being at the top of mind for those that might be a little bit more vulnerable or having health issues. So we want to keep them in mind. As always, we thank you for engaging with our community, engaging with our district. We want to be accessible, whether it's through the Let's Talk portal or just being able to answer your questions as you push emails our way or make phone calls or connect with us on a variety of social media outlets. So please continue to do that and look for our communications in the coming week as we continue to keep you apprised of things taking place within Liberty Public Schools. Again, thank you everyone for joining us for this month's virtual coffee with the community.
And thank you very much, Dr. Tucker. As we get ready to put a bow onto this, appreciate the information. You actually covered many of the questions, kind of those frequently asked questions at the top of the list during your presentation there. And I think, at least from my standpoint, and I'm sure you feel the same, that the tough part is a lot of the questions that are coming in right now don't necessarily have answers. We have pieces of the puzzle looking to try to get those put in place, hopefully over the course of the next several weeks.
Yeah, we are trapping a lot of questions. And as those questions come to us, if we have an answer, absolutely, we want to push that answer out for our parents, our staff, our students. A lot of good questions have been posed, as you said, Dallas, that we don't have an answer for just yet, but please know that we're working through those. One item in particular is, what does reentry look like? Mm-hmm. And so be it on the academic services side, as we think about that summer school piece, be it face-to-face or virtual, or be it for our employees and returning to work, how are those restrictions going to look in the next several weeks? We don't have an answer to that just yet, but we are working with the right people to prep for that work, be it our health department, Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, our mayors, whether it's in Liberty or in the city of Kansas City, just to make sure that we have the right plans in place and the right procedures for when we know more. So I continue to ask us those questions. We do appreciate our administrators turning around responses quickly through that Let's Talk portal. That has been a goal of ours, to be able to have a quick turnaround. And then again, as we have more definitive plans, we will push those plans out through frequently asked questions or other communication means. I always have to say this, though, as fluid as things have been in the last several weeks, within a matter of minutes or an hour, what you thought was a plan could get completely shelved, and you could be heading in a completely different direction, because others really are somewhat involved in dictating what things look like beyond our control. So I appreciate everyone's flexibility with that. So I always have to add that disclaimer, Dallas.
This has just been an absolute whirlwind since really that week prior to spring break, and then coming out of spring break with the learning from home plan. What have you, and you've been in administration for many years now. What have you learned the most out of this last, let's say, 6 weeks?
You're right. It has been a whirlwind, and for many of us that were looking forward to a little bit of change of pace over spring break, it actually did the exact opposite, and took off. And so a few things that we've learned along the way is really the value of connection, of relationship. And we've known that that's always critical. That's always important, even in a traditional environment when things are seemingly going well, whether it's our economy or just kind of our culture or region. In a time in which some of those interactions are taken from you and you find yourself sheltered in place, I think that's where that is magnified that much more. So those relationships are probably top of mind for me. The second piece is really the reliance on other people, which is closely related. The reliance on other people, be it your family, to sustain you, your friendships, your colleagues, your peers. In our instance, for me, those that are closest to me are my cabinet, our board of education, our strategic leadership team, and that we are truly surrounded by incredible people that can assist in problem solving. And so this is by no means Jeremy Tucker steering the ship. This is a collaborative effort to problem solve on behalf of 13,000 kids and an amazing community. So I think that's what I've learned along the way. There's no playbook for this. There's no template for it. I will say this, as this period, this pandemic, as we move beyond it, we will have a little bit of a playbook in what this could look like. But then this also stretches us a little bit to think about, could another type of disruption bubble up in our community, and how do we respond accordingly? I think that's why I appreciate everyone's flexibility and problem solving and creativity along the way. And that even as adults, as you said, I've been in administration for a while, I am still using those skills and dispositions from our graduate profile. And there's not a one skill and disposition that shows up on that graduate profile that, as an adult who's done this a little while, I am not leaning on in almost every single minute or every single hour of every day. So I think that's why that feedback from our community was so invaluable in identifying and trapping those skills and dispositions.
We are going to end at that point. Really appreciate you taking the time out to join us and wrap up our Coffee with the Community series. I mentioned earlier about something you had learned. I figured you'd also say maybe you learned after logging in today that I need a haircut by now. Me and many thousands.
I noticed that.
Yes.
I noticed that, but I wasn't going to say anything. And as you can see, I kind of take care of my own. So I highly recommend that. I've not seen any kind of drive-through haircut facilities just yet, but I do think there's an entrepreneurial experience there somewhere, or an opportunity there. So,
and isn't it's interesting? And I wanted to make mention before we wrapped up about how good things come out of these crises, if you will, and just if people would follow our Facebook page, and many have, and our Twitter page, to see these students and staff that are using the 3D printers to print the mask extensions for Liberty Hospital and other hospitals around. Our health services donating those N95 masks. We see those stories almost daily of just awesome things that are going on around us.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point. And you can look back historically. So I'm an old history teacher, and I think in any period where there's a challenge, be it environmental or be it political, there's always a lot of good. Sometimes you got to look for that good. And so I appreciate you, Dallas, putting the hashtags together and social media, because if there is ever a time when you are feeling down and out, so to speak, you can click on those hashtags and just follow the thread and see item after item after item within our school setting, within our kids' work, our teachers and what they're doing, our families, but even beyond that, our community and region, and see the amount of good or well-being that's happening on behalf of humanity in terms of trying to make the best of the situation that we're walking through. So I have no doubt we will come out of this much, much stronger.
Well, as we wrap up, again, appreciate your leadership and being the calm during the storm, and as we always say, as we wrap these up, be sure to take care of that family over there, and be well and healthy, and we'll really look forward to seeing you in person here soon.
Absolutely. I'm gonna want to hug everybody and shake hands, but I'm gonna have to back off.
Yeah,
so yeah, we look forward to getting back together with everybody. So thank you, Dallas.
Thank you. Take care.